What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/StoriesAboutKevin. This story's called Kevin is the Worst Roommate. So a bit of backstory. I'm a residential advisor. For those of you who don't know, that means I live in a dorm at my university, and I'm in charge of an entire floor of college students, mostly freshmen. I run events, decorate the floor with bulletin boards and door decorations, handle roommate conflicts, etc. Well, this year was probably the most interesting roommate conflict I've had to handle. So around week 5 of the semester, I get a message on Discord from one of my residents. Let's call him Andy. Andy asked me if we can talk, and that it's kinda personal, so he'd rather talk in person. I'm not overly excited about having my kids be in my room in personal space, less so because of Brovid, but I thought, what the hell, it's probably important. So Andy comes to my room the next day to talk, and he starts by explaining that he's been having issues with his roommate, Kevin. The way Andy is describing it sounds like it's typical stuff. You know, playing music too loud, playing video games and yelling really loud at all hours of the night, talking in the middle of Andy's classes, etc. Normally, this wouldn't be that big of a deal, but since classes are all online this semester, it's really hard to be able to focus in the middle of class or a test when your roommate can't take a hint when you're ignoring his attempts to talk to you. After talking with him some more, I could tell he was so stressed about this. I could literally feel the catharsis of him venting. Apparently, this had been happening for the entire 5 weeks school had been in session, and Andy had tried every possible thing he could to make things work with Kevin and to settle the conflict without my help. As much as I appreciated the sentiment, helping with roommate conflicts is my job, and he should have come to me much sooner, and I made sure to tell him as much. I told him we should start with a roommate contract so that he and I could enforce some mutual guidelines the two of them put down. I sent him the PDF of the contract, and within hours he had sent a filled out copy to me and informed me that Kevin had agreed to sign it. I got curious and decided to look over the roommate agreement and try to see what rules they put down. Most of them were normal. Lights out at midnight, don't leave food out, take out the trash when it's full, wear headphones when playing music or video games, etc. But at the bottom of the page, in the other section of the agreement, there were some interesting additions. For example, don't turn off the other roommate's fan at night, or don't talk to the other during a quiz or exam. And then I got hit with a couple of doozies, like don't lock the door if the other is going to the bathroom in the middle of the night, and don't show your roommate an open wound. It was at that moment I realized we were dealing with a Kevin. A couple of days later, Andy asked to speak with me again, and it was here that he explained that all of the weirdly specific rules were directed specifically at Kevin. Andy had woken up 2 a.m. one night and went to the bathroom, and when he returned, the door had been locked. Kevin woke up and realized Andy was gone and thought it would be a good idea to lock the door and then go back to sleep. And Kevin is a heavy sleeper, so Andy had to knock at the door for far too long before Kevin woke up and let him back in. And then he was annoyed at Andy for disturbing his sleep. After hearing that story, I decided to ask about the open wound rule, and I honestly wish I hadn't. One weekend, Andy had gone home for the weekend, which is in a city a few hours away from my university. While he was away, Andy received a text from Kevin asking if he could borrow Andy's duct tape. Andy agreed and heard nothing from Kevin until he came back. Upon returning to his dorm, Andy walked in on Kevin standing over the trash can with his back to the door and wincing and moaning in pain. When Andy looked, Kevin was peeling a layer of duct tape off of his finger. From what I understand, Kevin had a wart on his finger and tried to use the classic home remedy of using duct tape to cover the wart, but Kevin wrapped the duct tape around his entire finger, and I guess somehow managed to mess it up because when he tried to remove the duct tape, it certainly took the wart off, but also took off a decent chunk of skin around the entire circumference of his finger where the duct tape was. Kevin then proceeded to try and wave his bleeding raw finger in Andy's face, to which Andy threatened to vomit on him if he didn't stop. Over the next few days, Kevin kept trying to show Andy how his wound was healing, despite Andy's constant protests. As soon as I picked my jaw up off the floor after hearing that story, Andy told me the reason he wanted to meet with me again was because, surprisingly, Kevin was still at it and nothing had changed. In fact, Andy had received a warning from his professor because Kevin tried to talk to Andy in the middle of a quiz. The professor told him that if that happened again, he would fail. Kind of a schlong move for the professor, but whatever. Andy wanted a room change, and as much as I would have loved to give him one, our normal room change process is closed due to Brovid. However, I talked to my boss, and he told me at the very least attempt to mediate a conversation between the two of them, and if all else fails, we could initiate an emergency room change. So I asked them to meet in my room that weekend at a specific time. I get a knock on my door 5 minutes early and check my peephole and see none other than Kevin standing outside my door, alone. So I reluctantly open the door and let him in. I begin by asking him how things have been in the room, not wanting to take sides too early. Kevin proceeds to tell me that things are great and he's having no issues. So I point out that it seems like his roommate has been having some issues. And he just says, "Yeah, well, none of them are really that big of a deal." Right away, I'm blown away at the audacity, but I try to press a little further, reminding him that he has to share the room and that Andy is clearly uncomfortable. He then proceeds to tell me, "Well, I think Andy is just making stuff up and exaggerating to get his own room." Before I have a chance to respond, Andy knocks on my door and I call him in to join us. It's here that I learn that Andy is a freshman, as I expected, but Kevin is a junior. So I guess maybe the people in housing are Kevin's too for putting these two in the same room together. Not only that, but Kevin has had his last two roommates from his last 2 years of college move out in the middle of the semester. He claims they were both for unrelated reasons, but the best part about old room change processes is that the RA didn't have to be involved at all. If you were having roommate issues and your roommate was just so bad you didn't want to deal with your RA trying to convince you to work it out, you could just come up with another excuse to leave the room. Worked almost every time. Andy proceeds to try and voice his concerns to Kevin about issues in his room, and then brings up the fact that his professor gave him a warning because of the aforementioned quiz kerfuffle. Kevin then looks Andy dead in the eye and says, "I think you're lying. I don't think that really happened. You're just making that up to get your own room." We were speechless. And then finally, I told Kevin off for being such a jerk. I had tried to be patient up until that point, but I'd had enough. I basically told Andy I would be in contact about him getting that room change and sent them both on their way. We did, by the way, manage to get Andy into his own room. And because of Brovid, he was able to move into one of the rooms that just so happened to have been left empty on my floor. So he's still my resident. Thankfully, in the few days it took to get Andy out, nothing happened. But that was mostly because they were too annoyed with each other to say anything to one another. So that's it. Sorry this was so long and that it doesn't have a more satisfying ending. Unfortunately, showing an open, bleeding wound to your roommate isn't quite as punishable as underage drinking or smoking marijuana in the building. This was already really long, so I won't add any more to it. But let me know if you guys enjoyed this, and maybe I'll tell you about the flyer fiasco that's still happening with Kevin as we speak. Oh, maybe we'll read that one next time on Kevin Ball Z. But that was a good story. That Kevin's a jerk of a roommate, and it was really good that Andy got to move out into his own room. So that's sick. Sick. This story's called Kevin Orders Pizza. Okay, so this particular Kevin, whose name is actually similar, has plenty of stupid stories, but one that continually comes back to my memory for a good laugh is the time he ordered a pizza and ended up getting banned from that restaurant. Kevin ordered an extra large pizza from a pizza chain. I don't remember which one, as this took place about 4 years ago, for himself. Let me preface this by saying that Kevin is not a small guy at all. It's been a near constant problem for him ever since graduation, where he just ballooned out and lost all will to do anything but eat and game. I could write a book about how bad this guy was, but I'm gonna focus on this story for now. He's very fat. So Kevin intended to eat this entire pizza by himself. Not a big surprise. I cooked my own food that day and didn't care much that he was going to pig out and not share. It was typical behavior. Delivery guy arrives, Kevin opens the door and gets handed the za and the card machine. Card gets declined. Kevin is adamant he has the money, so they keep trying. Delivery guy says to Kevin, "I'm gonna get a different machine. I'll be right back." And leaves the pizza with Kevin. Convinced he has the money for the food, Kevin moves back upstairs and begins to practically inhale the pizza. I'm talking this extra large double cheese pizza was more than half eaten in less than 10 minutes before the delivery guy comes back. Wouldn't you know it? Kevin's card still gets declined. He has to give the pizza back. The guy opens the box to check and goes, "Whoa, buddy, you ate most of it." And all Kevin has to say is, "I know, I'm sorry, I was really hungry." Delivery guy shakes his head in disbelief and leaves. Kevin afterward calls and whines to his parents about being broke and being so hungry, while I'm halfway in awe of him and holding back laughter. Some weeks later, Kevin tries to order from the restaurant and they're like, "Weren't you the guy who ate a pizza without paying?" "No, ma'am, I only ate half." "Okay, well, we can't process your order today. Goodbye." And he was just confused as all hell why they couldn't process his order. Like, buddy, you just admitted to ripping them off. That's a funny story. I like that one. But that guy needs help. Probably something like depression or something else. I don't know. But usually when someone gains a lot of weight, doesn't do anything besides eat and game, they're probably going through something. This story's called A Kevin Is Me, aka the time I almost set my uncle's house on fire. Right off the bat, I was the Kevin in this situation, but I can look back and laugh. This happened years ago when I was visiting my Uncle Dave's house for the weekend. One thing you need to know is that Uncle Dave built his own house and decided to add a fireplace. When I came over, we would have movie nights and I would light a fire and snuggle up with 2, now 3, chocolate labs. For those wondering, the dogs' names are Mishu, Daisy May, and Olive. So that night was a Friday the 13th, and we were watching movies as usual. I had been having a little too much fun with the fire and doing really dumb things, such as lighting paper airplanes on fire and shoveling hot embers and burying them with ash in the metal ash bucket. Remember that. Before someone says something about Uncle Dave being irresponsible, he would have beat my ass if he found out, and he was asleep while I was being a Kevin. At around midnight, it happened. Remember those hot embers I scooped into the ash bucket? They had a chemical reaction or something, and for some reason, smoke was coming out of that bucket. My brain thought, water plus something burning equals no more fire. For some reason, I went to the kitchen and filled a glass of water and dumped it into the ash bucket. Big mistake! When I dumped the water into the ash, there wasn't just a little bit of smoke anymore. It began billowing black smoke like a locomotive. At that point, I haven't woken up Uncle Dave yet, and I was prancing around, mentally freaking out on what to do. I didn't need to wake him. The smoke detector did. He woke up to smoke everywhere and the sight of me dancing around. Uncle Dave ran for the ash bucket, and right when he chucked it outside, fire erupted out of it and would have set fire to a bunch of flammable items, setting the house on fire. With that out of the way, he was grade A pissed off at me, and he was screaming at me on what the hell I was thinking and why I didn't do anything. I remember going to bed in tears that night, but I deserved it. Now, normally this is where my story ends, but nope, I somehow made it worse on myself. When the rest of the family found out, they were all understandably livid, and my mom wanted me to apologize. I did, and in my Kevin mind, I thought smiling would help lessen my punishment. I forgot the reason, but to them, I probably looked like a little turd who was proud of myself. I was not proud. Everyone was disappointed in me. My mom did not trust me at all, and for half a year, I was grounded from anything that gave me happiness. Are you serious? Like toys, video games, and my iPad. The worst part was having to sleep on the floor in my mom's room and listen to her snore, because she didn't trust me enough to sleep in my own bed. I deserved all of that. Today, we all look back on that and laugh. I'm no longer a Kevin and am now studying to become a clinical psychologist. Anyway, I really hope you enjoy my story of Kevinness, and may the Kevin be with you. That's a bit of a harsh punishment for a kid doing an accident, or having an accident. That sounds like he pissed himself. You get what I'm saying. But I'm glad it worked out in the end, and that's terrifying. That's terrifying, but I honestly don't think OP's to blame. It's just a dumb kid thing to do. I've done stupider. Okay, I've done similar stupid things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.